All right, today we're jumping into a really chilling story that someone posted online. It's a first-person account of how a completely normal life can just spiral into something you can't even imagine. We're going to walk through it step by step and try to understand this descent into darkness.
So get this. This is where the story ends, with this absolutely shocking ad posted on the dark web. It's simple, it's to the point, and it is the terrifying climax of this entire journey. But you gotta ask, right? How does anybody get to this point? I mean, the narrator says he started out as just a regular bartender. So to really get what happened, we need to go all the way back to the beginning of his story.
According to the post, it all kicked off when his life completely fell apart. He describes himself as just a normal guy in his late 20s, working as a bartender in London, living what he thought was a pretty average life. The thing that lit the fuse was just this single moment of betrayal. He decides to come home early from work one night to surprise his girlfriend, only to find her with his own friend. And he says it wasn't even anger he felt, it was just nothing. A complete, hollow numbness. So the next morning, she just leaves. Not a word, no apology, nothing. He couldn't stand being in that apartment anymore, surrounded by all those memories. So he did the only thing he could think of. He quit his job, packed one bag, and just ran, headed to a childhood friend's place in Birmingham to try and escape it all. Once he's in Birmingham, he tries to start over. But his job search is going nowhere, just rejection after rejection. And this is the point where he says that desperation started pushing him down a much, much darker path. He talks about his confidence being totally shot. And one night, while he's just doom-scrolling for jobs, he stumbles onto a forum talking about work you could find on the dark web. And the contrast was just stark. On one hand, you have endless rejections and fading hope. On the other, illegal work? Sure, but with incredibly high pay. He said he just needed a distraction, so he downloaded the browser and went in totally blind. So he's browsing these forums, and he sees ads for hitmen, for arms dealers, all way too risky. But then he finds this one. Disposing of bodies. And in his twisted logic at the time, this actually seemed like a safer option. He admits that the more he thought about it, the more this kind of sick excitement started to build up. So he calls the number, and it leads to this super sketchy, clandestine meeting process. He's told to follow a trail of red handkerchiefs tied to trees deep into the woods. And that's where he meets him, a man who only calls himself T. And T tells our narrator that from now on, he's just D. Then takes him to this remote warehouse, and this is where it gets really disturbing. He walks him through the disposal method on an actual body. He explains it so clinically, like a science lesson, how the chemicals dissolve everything, how the bones are burned down to ash, and how the ash is dumped in the river. And to really make sure the message landed, T tells them the body they're working on was his old partner. Then he just says, "I hope you're taking this seriously." The pay? $10,000 per body. And our narrator describes the work as simple, routine even. And here's the really crucial part. He writes that with every job he did, he actually started to feel better. The money, the emotionless work, it gave him this weird sense of power, of excitement. So for a while, this becomes his new normal. He talks about having a long list of clients and just going through the motions, totally detached. But that feeling of control, it was about to be completely shattered. The whole thing unravels during a routine pickup of two bodies. He's lifting one of them, a woman, into the tub, and he notices a tattoo on her hand. He says he never, ever looked at the details, but this one, for some reason, just stopped him cold. He looks closer, and he sees it's a date. And as he reveals in the post, this wasn't just any date. It was a date that meant something deeply, painfully personal to him. His stomach drops. He realizes it's his ex-girlfriend, the one who started this whole spiral. He says he barely made it through the job. But the horror wasn't over. The very next night, T calls for another pickup. And when he gets there, he finds the bodies of his own parents. He just completely breaks down. T apparently tells him to calm down, take some time off, says that he'll handle this one. Our narrator admits that he just ran. He left his parents' bodies there with T, and he calls himself a coward for doing it. Back at his friend's place, something inside him just snaps. The grief, the guilt, the self-hatred, it all hardens into this cold, sharp resolve. He wasn't a victim anymore. He was now completely focused on one thing, getting revenge on T. So this lays out his game plan. For a week, he pretends to mourn, but secretly, he's plotting.
Then he goes back to work, but this time he's watching T's every move, studying his routines for weeks. One night, he follows him to a hidden house in the woods, and a few days after that, he manages to swipe a spare key.
The next time he knows T is gone, he uses the key and gets inside the house. He finds an office, and in a filing cabinet there's a folder, and the name on the tab is his own, Darren James. And what's inside is just bone-chilling. It's his entire life story. There are photos of his ex-girlfriend and his parents, and each one is crossed out with a big red X. And the only person left, circled, is his friend Samuel. Just as he's processing this, T walks in. They fight, and our narrator somehow gets the upper hand, holding T at gunpoint. He screams at him, demanding to know why, and T just confesses. He killed them all because he saw them as a weakness, a distraction that could pull Darren away from the job. He did it, as he puts it, to ensure your complete and total loyalty to me.
So as T starts laying out this grand vision for their future as partners, this unstoppable team, our narrator just shoots him mid-sentence. And standing there over the body, he says he had this sudden, crystal-clear realization.
And this is it. This is the final transformation. Before, he was an accomplice. He was just cleaning up other people's messes. But in that moment, he had taken a life himself. He crossed the line he could never, ever uncross. As he puts it, there was no going back. I was a murderer.
And that brings this whole insane narrative full circle. He takes out his phone and he posts the exact same ad that started this entire nightmare. In his own words, he didn't just destroy the monster, he took his place. The story just ends there, leaving you with one really chilling question. Who's gonna answer his call?